If you could, thank you for being here. If you could take a moment to introduce your name and your role and what school you're at.
Sure. My name is Carrie. I'm the instructional coach at Armstrong Elementary School, and I also lead our MTSS site intervention team.
Thank you. So, I know that your team just recently decided to review the MTSS self-assessment mid-year. I'm wondering what led to that decision as to why, as a team, you decided to review it mid-year in addition to what you'll do at the end of the year.
Sure. So I know throughout the years it's been different times. Sometimes it was the fall, sometimes it was like November, and then the last few years it's been the end of the year, May, June, when we reflect on the MTSS self-evaluation. And we often notice that by the end of the year, our school year was over. And so instead, we thought it would be good in January as we were starting a fresh school actual year to actually have our MTSS site intervention team go through the process of looking where we scored each other last time we met in May, June of last year, and where might we rate ourselves now, with the hopes that we could still have time in the year to do something with it, as opposed to just kind of checking the box and saying, yep, we did our self-assessment, and then forgetting over the summer what we needed to work on.
Right. Thank you. So, what was the process that you led your team through to review that self-assessment?
Sure. So I printed off our self-assessment from the previous year for all the team members. As they walked in, they got a copy. I also sent it out with our agenda. So if people wanted to look at it before, they could. They didn't have to. And then they had some independent quiet time to equate themselves with the self-assessment. We just focused on we broke it up into our chunks. And the one we're going to talk about today is just that tier one. And then we had teachers independently on the team go through, rate. We also used the guiding questions that came out last year from the county, which were really helpful because we were like, what does this really mean? And we were able to go back to those guiding questions and those look-fors. So that document was helpful as well. And then we shared out. So we would just start with the first one and say, hey, this is what we had last year. How do you guys think that compares to where we are this year, and what might be our evidence of why we might rate that one way or another? And then consensus kind of came out of the group for that section.
Thank you. So, what were some of the strengths that came from that assessment?
So a lot of our strengths were focused on the academic side. We have 2 CLTs a week, one focused on language arts and one focused on math. And this is my 5th year I've been at Armstrong, and even the year before I came, they really started focusing on the CLT cycle and following the 4 critical questions. So we noticed a lot of our strengths came out of that. We were following that cycle, especially in math. I think with language arts, there's a little bit more opportunity for growth. But in math, we definitely have, our agendas and clear objectives and which critical question does it relate to, and where are we in that? We really focused on math strategy ladders over the last few years, so we were really honing in on what kids can do, using it as formative assessment to drive our instruction throughout a unit, and then coming back also summatively to look at where students ended up, and then who still might need something more, whether it be that tier 2 reteaching. And then our data dialogues were something that was also a strength that came out. We had just recently done our BGA data dialogues for looking at our winter results and then determining next steps. And so, and again, that gets a little into tier 2 because we actually made some like reteaching groups, but that was something we did as a whole tier 1 process just through our regular CLTs.
And then what were some areas of growth that emerged?
So our biggest commonality for opportunity for growth is that social, emotional, and behavior wellness piece. We don't have a dedicated 3rd CLT to that. I'm not really sure where that would fit in. So we were trying to brainstorm. Last year we were lucky. We used our ESSER money to have a full day planning day for teams, which we got great feedback about that. Were they able to analyze their cell data, come up with strategies, walk away with plans to implement right away. And so we were brainstorming as a team of like, where might this come from, this time come from, where teachers don't feel like it's one more thing. And so we're going to offer choice to teams for our language arts CLT, just to pick one. We give a window after we'll have the cell data, And then the school counselor will put that on her calendar to make sure she can attend. And last year the whole clinical team attended, so they'll be invited as well. And so even though it might not be a weekly check-in, we felt like it was a reasonable bite-sized next step that we could manage as a school.
So then that leads into, I think, how you're going to go about monitoring the implementation of this shift, right? So anything you want to add about that monitoring piece?
So I think what will come, the monitoring from that cell piece will be us going by name and by need for students that come up on that screener that we might want to check in. And then was it just the day the kiddo took it, or might there be something going on, and what might be our next steps for them? I also anticipate too that teachers will, last year they noticed trends of what they wanted to work on, and so how might we build that into a morning meeting, or how might we be strategic with the time we already have to hone in on some of those topics to help reteach students. And then I think it's just building in a time in another language arts CLT, like that we pick that date as a team when we're meeting of when we want to check back in, because we know how busy things are. If we don't do that, odds are we probably won't check back in.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing and coming today.
You're welcome.